You have believed in something your entire life. Maybe you never questioned it. Maybe you did once, and then quietly put it back where it was, because the question underneath is too big. Does God exist? Not as a debate, not as a philosophy lecture, as a question about you, about why your brain reaches for it in the dark, about what you are actually searching for when you search for God. Neuroscientists have scanned the brains of people in deep prayer and found something they did not expect. The same region that lights up when you feel completely safe with another person, that lights up when you believe something infinite is watching over you. And that is not an answer. That is the beginning of a much stranger question. Stay until the end, because the last part of this will not just change how you think about God, it will change how you think about yourself. Here is something almost no one tells you. The human brain cannot tolerate the feeling of being alone in the universe. It is not weakness. It is biology. In 1997, neurologist Vilayanur Ramachandran at the University of California studied patients with temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition where certain seizures produce overwhelming feelings of divine presence. He found that specific neural circuits, when activated, generated what subjects described as contact with something infinite. He called them the God circuits, not because God placed them there, because that is what they produce. And here's the part that should stop you. You have the same circuits. Every human brain comes wired with the capacity to experience the divine, which raises a question no one wants to hold for very long. If your brain can manufacture the feeling of God, how do you know the feeling is proof of something outside you, and not something inside you? But here's where it gets stranger. 30,000 years ago, a human being crawled into a cave in southern France and painted something on the wall. Not an animal, not a meal. Something hovering above the animals. A force, an unseen presence. They had no Bible, no temple, no priest. No one told them to do it, and they still invented God. Every civilization on Earth, the ancient Sumerians, the Greeks, the Aztecs, the Vedic people of India, arrived at the same structure, independently across thousands of years of separation. The names changed, the rituals changed, the faces changed, but the bones were always the same. Something bigger than you. Something watching. Something that requires something from you. Psychologists call this agent detection. Your brain evolved to assume that movement means intention. A rustle in the grass might be a predator. So the mind learned to attribute will to the unseen. It kept your ancestors alive for 100,000 years. And somewhere along the way, you applied it to the sky. But hold that, because the next part is the one that should unsettle you. There is a question that most people who debate God never ask. Not does God exist, but who built the God you believe in? Think about it carefully. The God you hold in your mind, what does it look like? What does it demand? What does it promise? What language does it speak? Now think about where you grew up, what your parents said, what the building on the corner told you, what the book on the shelf said before you were old enough to read it yourself. Your God came from somewhere, and it came from people who were also afraid. This is not a dismissal of the divine. This is a more precise and more honest question. Thinkers who devoted their lives to this problem arrived, through completely different paths, at the same uncomfortable observation, that what most humans call God is not something they discovered. It is something they assembled, from their culture, from their grief, from their longing, from their terror of the dark. And once you build it, you cannot see past it, because now you have something to lose. Fear is the architect of most human religion. That is not cynicism, that is anthropology. When you are uncertain, when the future is open and frightening and wide, the mind reaches. It reaches for something that promises that the chaos has a shape, that you are not falling, that something is holding, and that reaching is not wrong. It is a mammal alone in the dark, making the only move it knows. But here is what psychology keeps confirming. The thing you build out of fear takes on the structure of fear. A God who punishes, who abandons, who keeps score. A God you have to earn. That is not divinity. That is your own anxiety given a name and a throne. And here is what changes everything. Because fear-built God and love are not the same thing, and one of them is closer to real. Consider what happens when the fear is gone. Not suppressed, not managed, actually gone. In 2003, researchers at the University of Wisconsin studied the brains of long-term meditators during states of sustained compassion. What they found had never been measured before. The boundary between self and other began to dissolve, not as a metaphor. In the scans, the thing you call you, the border of it, became briefly unclear, and the subjects did not describe emptiness. They described fullness, contact with something that was not separate from them, which is not proof of God, but it is proof of something, something that does not arrive through fear, something that does not come when you are performing belief for something watching you. something that shows up only when you have put down everything you were told to carry. Here is the part that is easy to miss inside every version of this debate. The word is not the thing. The word God is not God. The concept of love is not love. The description of eternity is not eternity. And most of us, if we are honest, have been living on words. We say we believe in God, but what are we believing in? The word, the image, the inherited idea assembled by people who were also guessing, or the thing the word is pointing at. This is not a trick. This is the whole problem. When you read a description of the ocean, you do not get wet. When you hear the word fire, you do not feel heat. But humans have built empires and fought wars and burned each other alive over descriptions of something most of them may never have directly touched. And here is the honest question underneath all of it. If you stripped away everything you were told, every name, every image, every inherited story, would there still be something? Or would there be silence? And if there was silence, what would that silence feel like? There is something neuroscience and serious philosophy have quietly agreed on, even when they resist sharing language. The self, the thing you call you, is not what you think it is. Your brain constructs a story of a continuous person moving through time. But that story is edited, curated. It drops inconvenient moments. It fills in gaps with fiction. You are not the narrator of your experience. You are the narrated. And if the self is a construction, if what you call I is a story your brain tells to itself, then the question does not end at does God exist? The question becomes, does the you asking the question exist in the way you assume it does? And if the answer is not quite, then what is left? Something. Something is still there. Something that is watching the story being told. Something that cannot itself be narrated. And no one has a clean word for it yet. Here is what we know. Every human brain ever formed reached for something beyond itself. Every civilization that ever rose built a container for the thing it could not name. That is not proof of God. But it is proof of something in you that will not stop asking. You will not stop either. Even the most certain atheist lies awake sometimes and feels the full weight of the dark. Even the most certain believer has a moment when the God they built goes quiet. And in that gap between the question and the silence, something is still present. Something that is you, and might be more than you, and is asking the question you have always been asking without knowing it. Does God exist is not finally a question about the universe. It is a question about what you need to be true. It is a question about whether you can stand in the open, without a leader, without a word that soothes you, and keep looking. Because the ones who found something real, not the concept, but the thing, they said the same thing across 30 centuries. No ritual delivers it. No amount of certainty purchases it. No one else can go there for you. Just you and the question, and the willingness to stay with it until the question itself changes shape. The strangest thing about this search is not that humans have been doing it for 30,000 years. The strangest thing is that you are doing it right now. Not because someone told you to, because something in you cannot stop. That need, that burning, restless, unsatisfiable need to know, might be the most important thing about you. You did not choose this question. The question chose you. And somewhere underneath everything you have been told, and everything you have built to protect yourself, something is already answering. You just haven't learned to hear it yet.